Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair. It's almost New Year's Eve, or the day before if you're watching this on Patreon, and as such, I am going to take a tip out of Linkara's book and take this week to look back on the show's past. Way back in my 50th episode, I did a list of my top 10 favorite episodes of this show. It was a cop-out, sure, but I had fun doing it, and I wanted to do a similar thing for the 101st episode. But because the 100th episode came out so late in December, the 101st episode ended up kicking off Alda month, so I had to delay it. And I figured that New Year's Eve was a perfect time to do it. Plus, after last week, I just want to do something easy. Anyway, yeah, this is going to be a countdown of my favorite episodes of the Literary Lair, with one rule. I can't repeat any episodes from the first list, though, if I can be honest, I doubt anything from the first 50 episodes is going to even make the list. In fact, I don't think anything from before 2014 is on the list. They're not my best work, but they got us here, so I can't say that they're completely terrible. Anyway, let's just get to the list and go through my new top 15 episodes of Literary Lair. Why top 15? It just felt like a good number, and maybe I just like talking about myself that much. Let's do this. Start off with a couple honorable mentions. All of my April Fool's Day episodes. Basically, they're all pretty decent. My first one from 2014 is great because I finally got to be the cinema snob and look at a movie I'd been planning for a fan MST3K episode that never got off the ground. The second one from 2015 was a cheesy sitcom, and 2016 was my favorite so far because it was basically all of my unused ideas smashed together. See, I spend the year brainstorming ideas to do for April Fools, but last year I had so many ideas I couldn't decide which one was the best, so I just did them all. There were a couple I didn't get to do, like I wanted to do a parody of the comic strip critic and some sort of MASH parody, but I couldn't come up with any jokes that worked for them. But there's always next year. Anyway, let's get on to the actual list. 15. Angel Armor. Yeah, of course this is number 15. Originally, it was here because it was supposed to come out directly before I did this list. But I kept it here because, come on, it's the 100th episode. Of course it was gonna make the list, and naturally I think it's one of my best. There are just some episodes that I like for other reasons. This episode was great. My only criticism is that I didn't manage to get a cameo from the author of Angel Armor, Louis Linkara Lovehog himself. But it still works without it. The book, from the moment I read it, I knew that it was going to be the 100th episode. Not only did it keep in with the fact that my earliest videos were thinly veiled Linkara ripoffs, it was also a really good review, even if I did go way too in-depth on the summary. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have gotten away with making it as long as it was if it wasn't for a milestone. Plus, it had some of my favorite jokes I've ever made, and cameos from some, though not all, of my internet reviewer friends/colleagues. Plus, it was the first video I made that actually had an extensive and funny blooper reel to it. They make it to the second church and are greeted very happily by that church's priest. 14. Sliders, the novel. This one is great, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. A little less happy that it took a damn month to get out. Between New York Comic Con and doing Halloween videos, the video came out in November when I actually started working on it in early October. Go figure. Then again, the reason it's so low on the list is that I didn't do much aside from hopping through a portal. All the heavy lifting was given to my double from that universe. I do think he did a good job, though I still can't figure out how he made so many references if he had only seen the first 2 seasons. Overall, the video was really good, even if I probably would have done it a bit differently. I mean, a regular tie? Obviously that universe didn't get the memo. Bow ties are cool. At least he got the memo about Stetsons. 13. Never have your dog stuffed. Alan Alda Month was conceived because I wanted to be able to unabashedly talk about my favorite actor of all time. And while I don't think that 2017 will have another January theme month, I'm happy that I got to do Alan Alda Month. And while I like the entire month, this is my favorite, if only because that book was so fascinating, and it's my favorite of his 2 memoirs. The timing of it was a bit unfortunate, since it came so close to Wayne Rogers' death. And like I said in the credits, the irony of that memorial going before a video about Alan Alda was not lost on me, since he left MASH because Alda was fast becoming the main character, when the book put more focus on the Trapper John. Overall, I enjoyed it because it let me talk about my favorite actor and facts about his life that I can't normally use in conversation. Not because I don't want to, but because all my friends and family are sick of me talking about Alan Alda constantly. 12. Captain Underpants. This was inspired for one reason, the release of the final book in the series almost 2 years ago, having a shocking but not unwelcome revelation about the future of George and Harold. Without going into detail, since I haven't read it, Harold Hutchins, the one with the striped shirt and bad haircut, is gay and in the future has a husband and kids. And that's fine. I haven't read it, so I don't know exactly what it entailed, but I said those books, even in their earliest ones, were books that were completely different from anything else out there for kids to read. And I'm happy that Dave Pilkey is contributing to normalizing non-straight relationships. Anyway, that rekindled my interest, and which is why I made this episode, and I love it, because it allowed me to break my personal comic book rule, since I feel like I'm not good enough to do comic books, but a novel with comic book style artwork is fair game. Plus, and this came as a shock to me, the video, as of the writing of this video, has almost 240 views. Who knew my nostalgia was marketable? Time Warp Trio doesn't even have that many views, and it only came out a few months later. Overall, it was nice to revisit a series that I enjoyed as a kid and get to share it with hopefully my entire viewer base. And I hope that some of them had kids that now get to experience the books that shaped my sense of humor and my taste in books. I might even get to revisit the second book in the series in this coming year, since the film adaptation is coming out in 2017. I sang its praises in the episode and basically said everything I had to say, and this is one of my favorite episodes I've done in the past few years, mainly because of how it reignited my nostalgia for a book series that I hadn't thought about in a very long time. 11. Spock Reflections. Another one included mainly because of the subject matter. This one was breaking my comic book rule, and it was because it was the only Star Trek material I had that put a major focus on Spock's history. Plus, it included references to all eras that he appeared in, save for the Kelvin timeline, only because this occurred immediately following Kirk's death in 2371 on Viridian 3. This one was fun to put together, but the sort of fun that's overshadowed by the sadness I felt that I was making a memorial episode for one of my favorite actors. Spock is my favorite Star Trek character, and Leonard Nimoy is all of the reasons for it. I know that Gene Roddenberry created him, but Nimoy is what made Spock who he was. The episode came out pretty good as well, and it's one that I enjoy going back and watching from time to time. Overall, it was a fitting tribute to one of the big three of Star Trek, and one that I thoroughly enjoyed making, even if I wish I hadn't had to. 10. Don Quixote. Okay, so this one is a bit complicated because technically the episode never happened, since my future self erased the timeline where it happened. However, it turns out that my future self retains knowledge from the other timeline because of temporal shielding he has, so he was able to give me the details, though he refused to come back to reminisce on it for himself. The episode was fun to make, and I enjoyed it, or I will enjoy it. But I guess I already did enjoy it in the future. Whatever. Don Quixote was a wild ride, and I think I managed to contain the craziness into a 10-minute video. The fact that it took me an indeterminate amount of time to actually do the review between reading, writing, and filming it is pretty impressive as well. And considering that my initial idea was to start the episode with me singing about the book to the tune of I, Don Quixote, I think we all know this was the better choice. The book was balls to the wall insanity, and I enjoyed being able to regale you of it. Or will enjoy it. I liked the episode since it was different, and overall it spared you all from my singing, and I guess that's a positive aspect. 9. Star Trek Killing Time. Another Trek review, and another one that includes a memorial message to a cast member who is no longer with us. This video was one of my big ones for the 50th anniversary, a book that I had wanted to do for years, and one that I made sure that I did to commemorate the anniversary. The book was so great, and I really enjoyed the idea of the alternate timeline where Vulcan was the instrumental figure in the Federation as opposed to Earth, even if it wasn't in canon with Enterprise, since Enterprise hadn't happened yet. The episode was fun to put together too, because it let me spend a few minutes talking about the origins of the Star Trek fandom, which I had previously learned a lot about for a sociology project a few years ago, and I was happy to put the knowledge to good use. I'm still annoyed that the scandalous Kirk Spock slash stuff was harmless by today's standards. I was hoping for a controversial book, not something that isn't as bad as run-of-the-mill fanfic. Plus, it had so many references to many aspects of TOS, so it was the perfect book to do for the anniversary. I also like that it so easily tied into my next Star Trek video by pure chance of a similar plot. Wait a minute. Romulans altering the timeline, Spock forcibly mind-melding with Kirk being a lower rank than everyone else and getting marooned on a planet far away from the ship. This book shares a lot of similarities with Star Trek 2009. I mean, the Praetor Thea even has a strong revenge connection with Spock. I don't know how to feel about this. Overall, it was a fun episode to make, and I had a lot of fun writing it. 8. MASH. You knew this was gonna show up somewhere, the review that started it all. Not starting the show, mind you, but starting my obsession with reviewing all things MASH. Which reminds me, we've got to get back to this series eventually. Anyway, I love this episode, not because it's particularly good, because it's not, but because it was my first review of one of my favorite books of all time. I'm not proud of this episode per se, but I did enjoy making it, and any excuse to wear my Hawkeye Pierce costume is a good video in my book. Plus, I did get to make a pretty funny end scene that forced me to make a ham sandwich specifically for the purposes of one joke. Nurse, I need more suction.
Yes, doctor.
Live, damn it, live.
Is you going to live, doctor?
What's my official diagnosis? Needs more mayo. This is one of my favorites because it's one of the best of that year. 2014 was a bit of a weird year. It was the last year before I went to HD widescreen, so I look at the videos and I just assume that all of them are bad, but there are some good ones because my style hasn't really changed all that much since then. Just the camera and quality of the audio. Overall, this is a good episode, even if my delivery was a little off. And if it hadn't been for this episode, you probably would have been spared from my Alan Alda obsession. We'll be right back after I perform a few scans. And we're back. Everything's working perfectly. 7. Jurassic Park. Like I said, Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies, so getting to review the book it was based on was awesome. I think the episode came out well and had a lot of jokes that I really liked. Plus, it's the only episode in recent history that I can remember that during filming, I had to open up a pronunciation video on YouTube to figure out how to pronounce compsognathus. I had a lot of fun with this episode, and it was interesting figuring out how different the movie I loved was from the book. Plus, I liked the bit where I freaked out because Dr. Wu wanted to make the dinosaurs more entertaining, despite the fact that regular dinosaurs are entertainment enough. You have actual dinosaurs! People do not care if they're fast or slow. It's actual frigging dinosaurs! That's amazing in its own right! Who cares if they move too fast and look like sped up film? I mean, if you wanted to make them safer, that's one thing. But Wu specifically cites the fact that they need better dinosaurs for entertainment value. Dinosaurs are entertainment enough! Seriously, what the hell? 6. Death Wish. This one should be obvious. I like this one because it was a personal triumph for me, since it was the one episode that I had wanted to do and at the time was unable to. Plus, I think that had I done it in 2012, it probably would have been really bad, and I'm happy that I waited until technology met talent. Plus, there's no way that I would have made as many references and jokes as I had. And we wouldn't have had that awkward bit where I recognized the poster behind Detective Ochoa. Paul and Jack go to visit Carol at the institution, and Ochoa goes to lecture the cops, and... Wait a minute. This is awkward for me, too. I mean, the video was the culmination of nearly 3 years of work and is one of my favorite videos in general that I've done. I probably won't do videos for the other movies, but it felt great to finally get the weight of never having done this video off my shoulders. Overall, I like it because it was a personal victory. 5. Alternate Warriors. Do I really need to say why this one made the list? This was one of the greatest experiences ever. Not only was it alternate histories, but it was historical figures, who usually aren't fighters, turned into badasses. I mean, this episode is one of my favorites purely because of the subject matter. I mean, Don Corleone Pope, Golden Age of Hollywood actors dropping the atomic bomb on Germany, and Albert Einstein fighting Hitler. Rambo Gandhi was a disappointment, but I had fun with that episode, especially the part where I read Pope Don Paul's dialogue. So here's the scam, Johnny. I don't like the way you've been handling your branch of the outfit. The outfit, you know, the Holy Roman Church. He took a deep breath and got tough. You ain't been following orders, Johnny, and that makes me mad. What's more is you've been ignoring all my messages, and that makes me hurt. And I don't think you want me to be mad and hurt, Johnny, 'cause then I get mean. And do you know what happens when the boss of this outfit gets mean? People get whacked. I ain't saying it's gonna be you, Johnny. But then again, I also ain't saying that it ain't. I am dead serious. This is the greatest story ever to be put to paper. I mean, seriously, that was one of my favorite things I've ever read out loud on the show. Overall, that's why I like the episode. It was a nice, relaxing episode talking about a crazy awesome book. 4. The Dispatcher. This episode was one that came together the moment I started reading the book. I loved it, and the book was fantastic. It was an attempt at a change in format that I think was successful, and it's something that I might want to try again in the future, looking at an audio work that has no print counterpart, that is. I think the episode was just really good. It was a good combination of a great book and a great experience I had making the episode, even if I was getting over a cold at the time. I can't think of any specific reasons why I like it, but I like going back and watching it, and I definitely think that it's one of the best videos I've done this year. The Dispatcher is great, and while not free anymore, it's still available at Audible, and I highly recommend it. 3. Engines of Destiny. Another older video, specifically from 2014, and from not too long after I did MASH, but to talk about why I love this one, I've gotta do something. So, most of my reasons for liking this episode are from a production standpoint, which I can't really talk about in character. I went into this in my commentary on the episode, so I won't go super into detail here, but this was my most ambitious storyline episode to date, and I think that it was good for the time. I could have done it way better with my current camera and audio setup, but I like it, because it's not only an homage to my favorite TNG story, Yesterday's Enterprise, but it's also a kickoff to one of my favorite storylines I've done on the show to date. I love alternate timelines, so finally getting to do one for the show was a dream come true. Overall, it was a good book and an even better framing narrative that led to a great experience and fantastic episode. 2. The Three Doctors. Almost 2 years later, and I'm still really proud of this episode. I mean, god damn it, not only does it have my greatest triumph against Mike Sano, but it's also a really well put together review. I mean, it's one of my favorite classic Who serials, and I think that I did it justice. It's a solid review, and it has great jokes, including one of my favorites I've ever made. Joe and the Third Doctor find themselves in a quarry. A distant alien world. It's a quarry. Again, I went into a lot of my likes about it in the commentary, so I'll just say that overall it was a fun episode to make, especially since I got to interact with both my past and future, so I got to not only see where I came from, but where I'm going. And number 1, To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah, no duh, this is my favorite. This is such a good episode. It has a bunch of solid jokes that mostly hit, a good summary, and what I think some of my reviews lack sometimes, passion. To Kill a Mockingbird is legitimately one of my favorite books, and I only read it prior to the review. It was just so good, and I think it contributed to the issues I had with The Hunt for Red October, since there was nowhere to go from the pinnacle of classic novels. I might have trouble with future months since I've already discovered the greatest classic. If you haven't seen this one, go watch it. I really think this is my best work. I've gone back and watched it several times when I needed inspiration and needed to see what I could do on my best day. I know it sounds a bit self-aggrandizing, but it's true. My favorite bit has to be my 4 for Star Trek reference to make up for not reviewing a Star Trek book in June. Atticus tells the court that he doesn't think Mayella was raped, but she did something so disapproved of that she needed to get rid of the evidence, which meant putting Tom Robinson away from her. The jury deliberates and they come out and have their verdict. They find Tom guilty of all charges, which is bullshit. He is not guilty of raping Mayella Ewell. He is, however, guilty of taking part in a conspiracy to ensure that the Klingons and Federation would never ally, and was directly responsible for the murder of Chancellor Gorkon. He is also guilty of making a delicious jambalaya. Personally, I think they should have a retrial. The prosecutor looks a little shifty to me, like the type of guy to abandon his crew on a planet, only to leave them to their deaths and then commandeer another starship to take on a planet-killing weapon. And they keep asking about a doctor when the former chief medical officer of the Starship Enterprise is sitting right on the judge's bench. Come on, I'm missing out on a whole month of Star Trek with this. I gotta get my references somewhere. I just love it because there was so much passion behind it, and sometimes all I need to make an episode worth it is for me to have passion. Though higher view counts wouldn't hurt. And those were my new top 15 episodes of the Literary Lair. Did you agree with my list? Did I leave out some episodes that you guys liked or include ones that you hate? Tell me in the comments. Knowing what is liked and not liked helps me out because it tells me what videos I should make more of, and which I should only do if I have the passion. Did you guys like the video, or did you think that this was a cheap, self-aggrandizing cop-out? Did you think that I should have done an actual video this week instead of spending it talking about what I like about my own show? Tell me in the comments. I won't be offended, because I had fun making this video. If I have one wish for this coming year, aside from lower levels of celebrity death, it would be for more activity in the comments, or more activity on the Patreon, whichever you can afford, and I remind you, comments are free. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of the Literary Lair, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, show it to your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. See you next year. And if it hadn't been for this episode, you probably would have been spared from my Alan Alda impression. My Alan Alda impression. You know, when I was asked to join the cast of MASH, I wasn't sure about it, but since I joined, everything's been cream cheese since then. You know, I used to wear clothes like this. Yeah, I'm the old guy. That's my Alan Alda impression. Borrowing lines from Bill Hader's impressions from SNL.